although I know Adam has some things going on at the hospital.
Yeah.
I don't know if that discussion was on the recording or not, but for their wards, there were 2 assistant managers, and one of them has been moved out.
Oh,
And so he's the only assistant manager, and
yeah.
they're short of nurses. And
Yeah.
so it's entirely possible that he might. Oh, there he is. But he's on Zoom. Hi, Adam.
Hey, good morning. How are you guys?
Good. How are you this
How are you?
Good, good. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I just got a lot of stuff I got to get done this morning.
Yeah. Well, how are things at the shop?
Oh, they're okay. They're okay. Monday and Tuesday were a little bit of an adjustment without Chelsea there, but I'll find a rhythm.
Yeah.
There'll be plenty to keep me busy with now. So
I'm sure that's true.
yeah, you almost feel like you're paddling upstream and just staying ahead of it, but that's all right.
Well, as long as you're staying ahead of it.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Yep.
That's it. How are you guys?
Good.
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 Just trying to give Joanne and Bill a chance to get here.
Fair enough.
They're running behind, I gather.
Hmm.
Aha, there's Bill. Slowly we gather.
Adam, how many hours are your shifts?
Too many.
Yeah, okay.
I was doing 4 10-hour shifts a week.
Okay.
But now that there's not another assistant manager, I might start doing like 5/8
Okay.
and really resist that kind of management pressure for 5/8 to turn into like 5/12s.
Yeah.
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 Tends to be what happens for a lot of the managers. I like the afternoons because usually I get out at like 9:30, 10 at night, and there's really no one else there to like put pressure on to keep staying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I hear you. Sorry.
yeah, it's all good. Hey, Joanne.
Hey, how you doing?
When
Hello, everybody.
Mr.
Sorry, I'm a few
Brown,
minutes
are you
late.
there?
Suddenly my Zoom decided it wanted to update itself, even though I didn't ask it to.
Oh,
Oh yeah, it did update today.
Yeah, while I was trying to get on.
Of course.
Of course.
There you are.
Hello.
Hello.
Bill.
hey.
We're glad to see you.
Well, I'm glad to be seen.
How are your eyes?
My eye, one eye is done, and I'm going through the trillions of drops they give you and the aftermath of that. And the other eye is going to be done next week.
Aha.
So I have these glasses. One side reflects, and the other side I took the lens out of.
Mm.
Okay.
It's an interesting experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've had it done, David and Joanne and Bill.
No, I need to.
I have.
Yeah,
and
I'm getting
actually,
fuzzier. Yeah.
It didn't do much for me.
Oh, no.
Oh, mine improved immensely, although he said, your eyes are essentially so screwed up, I'm not going to take them all the way. There's,
Oh, God.
there's all
Okay.
kinds of astigmatism going on, so you know
Mm.
he couldn't fix all that. But my first reaction was, my gosh, the world is white, it's not yellow.
Yeah, yeah, right. That's exactly, right
Oh.
now, out of my old eye, everything now I realize looks like a sepia tinted photo.
Yep.
I'm not quite to that point.
I didn't get to that.
Well, you
point
don't
either.
realize it until you have,
Yeah,
until you have it in the other eye. You can close one eye and everything is white, like Bill said. And then you close that eye and open the other one, and it looks like an old time faded photo book.
Yep.
It's that slow change you don't notice.
Yeah, it's like the frog in the pot.
That's right. Yeah, I thought about that as you were talking.
Indeed. Okay. Anybody have a question? Okay, first thing I would like to know is, how is your kidney breathing coming?
I think it's improving, David. Getting more of a sense of the kidneys being differentiated from the other stuff back there.
Okay,
The other stuff.
It feels like when you really get it, there's kind of like a little extra jolt of energy.
okay, good.
Yeah, I feel aware of them. Yeah,
Good.
I feel like it's coming along well.
Yeah, and me too. I had an acupuncture session yesterday, and I was, while I had needles in my back, I was trying to move them.
And did you?
Yeah, I think so. It felt like it. They didn't pop out, but yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I think, I'm breathing and thinking about my kidneys, but to use borrow Adam's expression, I'm more in tune with all the stuff back there than, yeah. So,
I think
that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think it takes a little time to begin to be aware of the different things that you have back there, the different pieces of stuff, if we're going to use that official term. But
Medical term.
yeah, medical term. But do you feel that you're able to expand the lower back?
Oh, I have been working on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to incorporate that in with my morning warm up on the floor stuff. So
Good.
Yes. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the shoulder blades?
Yeah.
I think they've-
Sure.
yeah, I think they've been moving
Yeah.
more fluidly over the last week. I seem to be able to stay focused on it longer before needing to, check back in.
Yeah. Yeah, that
yeah.
particularly probably when you're doing the form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll get to the form. There's definitely spots where I lose touch with them, but
Yeah. Good. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Um,
I find when I'm thinking about them, it seems to work well. And if I'm not paying attention to them, it's easy to then when you go back, you say, oops. You got to bring them, get them out front instead of trailing behind.
Yep. I think it's just part of the process of each of these pieces that we're trying to incorporate, as it just takes a while before they become not automatic, but you're able to do them without having to put a lot of conscious awareness on them.
Mm.
It's that connecting. I mean, I think for me with my kidneys and kidney breathing, because I'm paying attention to breathing, it just can incorporate that in a way,
Mhm.
right? So I think that and I kind of, at a, at a red light, whatever, kind of like just during the day, trying to kind of do that breathing in a way that just keeps reminding me, just makes it a pattern.
Yep.
But I think we're too used to sometimes using our arms without being aware of our shoulder blades.
Mm.
So, I think that can be disconnected more. Although I, because of my practice and a number of other things, I've always been aware of them, I think so. But yeah, I agree that sometimes you just have to, keep go back and go, hey, are you still still doing it?
Am I connected or not?
Am I connected or not? That's right. That's the
Hmm.
question.
I almost feel like sometimes the connection is backwards for me. That moving the shoulder blades because I'm focused on the elbows, kind of pushing the shoulder blades along instead of the shoulder blades really being where the movement initiates from to carry that energy from the back down the arms.
Yeah, and part of that is because we have done some focus on the elbows being connected to the shoulder blades, which made the elbows more prominent in our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, we have to keep the awareness that they're connected, but now make the scapula movement be what's moving the elbows.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you,
Sorry, what's that, Bill?
have you talked about the connection of the shoulder blades to the breathing? I was just thinking about that as we're talking. Do they move apart as you inhale and expand your back, and vice versa for exhaling, or?
Well, it depends. So we haven't really focused a lot on the breathing here yet. But if you think about this, when actually we're generally inhaling when we bend and exhaling when we extend. That's the primary suggestion at the moment. It's not the only way to do it. It's the easiest way for the majority of people to connect. However, I have had students who found that doing it in reverse worked better for them. So it's I'm fumbling here because I'm trying to, how much do I want to say about this at the moment? Everything that we do in this, I'll go ahead and say this, everything that we do in Qigong or Tai Chi or any of the other energy arts, actually all of the elements, almost all of the elements can be done in the opposite way. So in other words, we normally are thinking about closing when we're bending an opening when we're extending, but it actually is entirely possible to open when you bend and to close when you extend, which I just did in my arms. That's not necessarily the way you're going to want to try to do any of this at the moment, but it just points out that when you get to a point where everything is pretty comfortable and you have a really, you're able to smoothly do all of the things that we're trying to establish here, that you also can begin to experiment with doing things in the opposite way and discover, because it is a matter of individual discovery of what is eventually what is the best way for you to do it at that time. And that, of course, with all of our work may change. And it may change an hour later or the next day or 6 months down the road or a year. Basically, to start doing things the way I'm suggesting as we begin to learn this are usually the easier way. But that doesn't mean if you find that you're trying to do something one way and doing, for instance, breathing in the opposite way just feels better and smoother and functions more effectively for you, there's no reason you shouldn't try it and use it. Absolutely. So
A few times in my practice, and it's early on, it was almost all the time. I would get the breathing mixed up and have to stop and reorganize the breathing part while I was doing the motion.
Yep.
And now if that happens, I've just started trying to keep it smooth and actually reverse the breathing if that sort of happened incidentally.
Mm-hmm.
And the three, when we're at the 6 and 9 and stretching, and you know, that's an inhale the way you've outlined it, and you said that could be either way depending on what felt more comfortable. But that's an interesting breathing. Three for me, the breathing is real interesting.
What does that mean? Interesting.
Interesting meaning that I sort of play with it more in 3 than in any of the other postures. More seems to be going on, especially if I can keep the 4 points square.
Yeah, that does help. Absolutely. Yeah, 3 is kind of interesting because eventually, we aren't quite there yet, but eventually I'll teach you another breathing pattern in there, because it kind of depends on what the focus of your intention for that posture is at the moment, because there are different ways that you can focus that. So anything for you, Mr. Nagel?
No, not really. No, I mean, everything I was thinking during what everybody's been saying, that when I started some years back, everything seemed to be focused on the hands and what they were doing. And this is not just gods, but the whole Tai Chi. And then it moved to what are the elbows doing? And now it's shifting to what the shoulders are doing. And it's just that in the beginning stages, this seems to be what drives. And then we're learning that it all comes from the inside in the shoulders.
Yep. Good. So we started really delving into 5 last week. Anything anybody wants to say about that? Okay.
I think being aware of the ball. I think that as we've already been through 5, that I have the basics, right? I have to remember them. I have to remember to keep going down rather than going up. It's 5, not 2. But I think that the advancement, I think there was a lot in last week's lesson just around kind of that, remembering those kinds of that condensing and the like. So I think just paying attention to that is the next layer or level of 5.
We'll next week actually we'll really focus on the condensing and the transition. So we will get to that in a little more specificity. And that is really, I think, the major issue in 5 and 6 is A, feeling that you have condensed, and B, only opening and closing, bending, extending within the remaining amount and not losing the condensing.
Right.
And that's
a challenge.
Certainly that was a real challenge for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're finding it that way or not, but it's this is a really new concept that we haven't really worked with previous to this point.
Yeah, I think that there is a difference between being aware this is a goal, being able to do it at some points, but then, yes, you're right, that the parameter piece is still, yes, definitely a challenge.
Yeah, it's something you have to feel in your body. So
yeah,
I think initially my instinct is to condense physically, muscularly, and I know that that's not nearly the whole story, but that's the instinct,
Yep.
So
it is absolutely, and of course that leads to tension, and we know that isn't what we want.
right.
So as always, I like Bruce's suggestion of having a struggle session. I mean, it is a struggle in a way at first, getting this concept into the body and making it comfortable and flowing.
yeah.
So let's talk a little more about 5 today. So in the ideal scenario, your wrists are going to cross as they come into the center in front of your dantian. The center point in your wrists is what you're using to raise the energy up your body, just as it's going to be the Laogong points that are going to you're going to use to move the energy down the left and right channels. And this is going to be a question. If your body is tight, and it's going to be what is below your skin that is tight, because that's what's going to stop your movement. So how much is that? Well, it's case by case. But what you want to look for is that when you start going up, if you feel it's really tight and you can't get your hands to the center line, don't worry about that. Just let the edges of your hands somehow make the contact so that slowly, by the time that your wrists actually cross, you really have a tight connection with everything inside your body. And I mention this because you may not be able to do it in the beginning. And it's not worth the time to just let your hands get relaxed to keep your hands in the middle. So the purpose is that when your hands go down and you start coming in, you want the hands, you want to make sure that your quad is tightening. And if you can, by the time your hands start to cross, you want to be right at your quad, and then your hands cross as you're at your dantian and raise the energy up the center. Then as your hands continue to rise up, you'll be stretching your quad as you send your energy out into the side channels and down. And then your hands go down and you'll be causing the quad to shrink down. Now this shrinking down is not going to be a lot because you've condensed, but it should be something. So you're trying to make your chi go out to your extremities and you're trying to make it come back. You're trying to make it go out into the left and right channels, and you're trying to suck it back into your core. Now the next question is, when you bring your hands up, how high do they go? And this is going to be about how tight your insides are. If your shoulders are really tight, or your chest, or if you have a bad back, you may find that when your hands go to your throat, you're beginning to bind up, and you really have to start going out or you're going to get pain. And we all know with the 70% rule, if we just take the pain, you want to stop at 70% before you move to the point that pain is going to start or something inside you feels like it's going to contract. And that's as high as you go. As time goes on, and you do this a lot, you won't feel any contraction when your hands make the maximum movement they can. They gradually do it a little bit higher and a little bit higher until the tightening, that contraction in your neck, face, shoulders, chest starts releasing. And at the beginning, you don't have to push to anything. The idea is to release what is blocked. The idea is not to try and push through a blockage. So the movement is similar to what you did in movement 2, but obviously with some significant differences. So of course, movement 5 follows movement 4. So what I'd like you to do is to stand up and begin with doing one of movement 4, and then pause when your hands come to the bottom, down in front of your dantian. And then I'll talk you on from there. So begin. Okay, so it's from this point that you begin to condense today. And from your back and your legs, you're going to start curving in so that your hands cross at the wrist, somewhere close to in front of your dantian. And your lower dantian is not the middle of your belly. And then you're going to continue twisting in as they raise the energy to the crown of your head, rising somewhere about halfway up the torso. And then your arms are twisting out to get to the sides, sending the energy down the sides and into the Kwa and the Dantian. And then your arms are twisting in, and coming down, crossing at the wrist. This must happen in front of your Dantian. Now your hands are coming up as you continue to close. And when your hands are somewhere around the middle of your chest, the energy will ideally have reached the crown of your head. And then you begin to rise as you twist outward and start to send the energy into your side channels and down. You start to close your Kwa as your hands go down. By the time they reach your lower dantian, your wrists are crossed, if that's comfortable. And as your arms rise halfway up, the Kwa continues to close. This will also stretch your body quite a bit. It may take you a while to get there, but that's what you want to do. And then as your arms go on up, your Kwa opening, you should feel an internal stretch and feel your Kwa really connected to your feet. Something is going down your legs. As you begin to sink, lowering your arms, you should feel something going through your legs. And then up to your Kwa and into your hands and the crown of your head. And then begin opening and rising, sending the energy down to your Kwa and feet. Just keep going for a moment. Okay. And relax. So what questions came up, if any, while you were doing that?
I found it difficult to find at what point the arms should be bending as you come down. It almost feels like they want it to still be stretching out after the point that they should have started bending in. So they were, at this point, this should be the farthest out, and then you should be bending in. But it felt like they still wanted to stretch out to push the energy down until about here and then bend into the Dantian.
Well, if you remember my demonstration last week, that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Where that point is, both in terms of on the side and where it is in the center, where the arms are rising up, bringing the energy to the crown of the head, you have to feel when that happens.
Okay.
And as I was trying to indicate, I don't know. Let's see. Let me. So it's entirely possible that I'm not going to start from 4 because the movement is too large.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let's say that I went to here with that. So it may be that whole process of getting the energy up might complete here, or maybe it completes here, or maybe it completes here. And then if it completes higher, then this may actually complete on at this point rather than here.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. So you have to feel where that is.
Okay.
You know, when I was first working on 5, one of the things that I found I had to do was I almost created a mantra when I was practicing this, so that I was saying, into the center channel and up to the top of my head, out and into my side channels, down to the qua. I was talking myself through it. And I actually found that helpful for a while. You don't want to do that forever, obviously, but it helped me really focus initially. So that's one thing I would offer. The other thing that I felt with all of you, actually, I think this is true for everybody, is that one of the things that condensing does is it makes all the movements smaller. It doesn't mean smaller in terms of here. It's not smaller like that. But it is smaller in terms of there is less bending and extending because it's all, you're doing it all a little further from the body. So you have to be careful that you don't think of condensing as
Bringing it in.
Making it little.
Yeah.
It isn't making it little. It's making it more powerful. And in these movements in God's here, they go that way. Just as an example, because I think there's probably more applies more to Adam and Joanne, but just as an example, when we think about doing wave hands in the Wu style, where we have the possibility to condense in the middle. So we do that, the first one, and it's pretty big, and then we condense, and it's still there on the other side, but I haven't made it like this. It's still going out there, but it's not this movement, it's this movement. It's a little hard to
That's helpful.
to define it.
That was helpful for me. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So the other thing is you're not bending and stretching at the qua a lot either. So remember that also has to be somewhat in relation to what the arms are doing. Although it's actually functioning the other way. The arms are in relation to what the body is doing.
And what I found, even though you weren't talking about it, being aware of my back, my pelvis tucking, kind of all of that, having to be part of, kind of insinuated in some level, I think, by what you were talking about. But
yeah, the next couple of weeks
to do that. Yeah.
In the next couple of weeks, we'll get more into the spine.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a similar question to yours, Joanne, as we're coming up, and if it's going to be next couple of weeks, that's fine. The coming up part, one thing I became aware of was when we're down at the bottom, I sort of stopped doing my twisting until I got up to the middle and started twisting out, but you continue twisting in until it comes to the middle and go out. So that was one little detail. But then also, I was wondering about the spine and the C curve, and when that, you want to gradually go to the C curve and then gradually come out of it. I understand that, but is that point where you start gradually coming out of it at when you start, exhaling and twisting out, or is it
Yes.
before then because you're coming up?
No.
But it's right up at the top. That makes sense.
Yeah, I have to say, it's really interesting. For me, certainly, I found movement 5 very counterintuitive to begin with, and
Mhm.
movement 6 very intuitive. So that's just the way they are.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but 5 does work when you really can begin to feel the movement of the energy and link it to what you're doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So, any other questions in there at the moment? Or thoughts?
I'm looking forward to getting to 6, because for me, 6 is kind of anticlimactic right now. I don't have a lot going on in 6.
Beware, Bill, beware. The hidden things going on.
So, yeah, you want to try to keep 5 very smooth in its movement. So trying to make sure you don't pause anywhere. And just in relation to what we were talking about, Adam, about the exact place where you will transition from an inward turn to an outward turn depends on you figuring out when your body will want to do that. But what is absolutely critical is that your elbows remain bent the whole time. Do not allow the elbows to lock. But as I was pointing out, that extension is not with the elbows bent. Extension is out but not locked. It's a different movement. And I think that if you can in your practice, that just doing 5 for a while and focusing on it is a good idea, so that you can really get the idea about how to close your quad and have everything in your body condensing and be doing the movements. There is sometimes a tendency to be very aware of the quad and lose what the rest of what you're trying to do, or reverse of that. You get, hey, my arms are great, but what's my quad doing? So all of it is really important, and it's important to really, I think, devote some time to this posture, because ultimately what's happening in 5 and 6 are right at the core of where we're trying to go with gods. So, any other thoughts or questions at the moment? I decided not to go beyond this today. I think that this is enough to practice in this. So on that note, I'll say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
See you all next week.
Yeah, have
Yeah.
a good week.
Take care, Bill.
I'm actually not gonna be here next week. I'm in Washington at a conference, so there's no way I can sneak in.
Okay. No, I'm sure there won't be.
Keynote talk on Wednesday morning. So
Aha.
sorry about that, but I'll be home late Wednesday night, so I will catch up on the recording.
Yeah.
I hope you have a
Great
big
things.
impact on Washington.
Well, it's actually, yeah, there's a lot of impacts on Washington. It's actually a community, it's a conference on housing and community
Oh.
land trusts. So, yeah, but yeah, I know. I think I need to be there for more than a few days to have an impact on Washington.
That could be, yes.
Ay, ay, ay.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Austin.
I,
I know.
I know that was a little short, but
It's okay, but sometimes that, helps focus, yeah.
yeah, well, I didn't want to go any further with that today.
Yeah. and
I do
sometimes when
think one
it's
of the,
like,
sorry, go ahead, Adam.
sometimes when it's, too many details, some of them get lost,
Yep,
so.
absolutely.
Right, and I also realized that Adam and I may have other deeper questions just because of our longer term practice on some of this. and our
Exactly.
Understanding of some of it, so a few times I'm like, well, should I get into that,
hmm,
But I think it's helpful when you remind us that you'll get deeper into something in the following classes, so that will kind of help pull
Yeah.
it together. And that's not to say that I won't keep working on or thinking about some of those things, because there's a point where once you begin to pull it together, you don't want to separate it out too much unless you have to really work on something. Like I
Yeah.
know what I have to work on 5. I keep I'm up before I should be. Like my body is stretching before my arms are not in the right place for that. So I'm aware of that. I do need to, those, so I am aware of those things and how they
Good.
connect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So in the woo style, Adam, you were kind of indicating you had some specific questions.
Yeah, with the scapular movement, I find it's easier to get the scapula involved almost by focusing on the elbows, moving the
Oh, yeah.
scapula, or focusing on the elbows and letting the scapula kind of come along with.
Mhm.
As soon as I try and focus on really moving the arms because the scapula are moving, I feel like on an intellectual level, there's now this gap where I have to really stop and think, well, where should the scapula move? Instead of just focusing on the elbows and keeping the shoulders and everything relaxed and letting them, move with everything else.
Yep.
So it made me realize, if I was to take an exam on which way the scapula should be moving when, I don't think I would score very well. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yes, I do. I do. Yeah.
That's kind of always the case, Adam, when we add something new.
Yeah, exactly.
And because of the fact that we do go through that period of really being aware of the connection of the elbows to the scapula, now when we go to the other end and we want to be very aware of the connection of the scapula to the elbows, we kind of have to flip around. And so, yeah, it takes some adjustment before that becomes natural, smooth, easy.
Yeah.
And I have to say that this is my own personal experience, but I'll just say it because it was a transition that really helped me. When I began to do that, I really used the 8 gates, but either sequence of the standing and pulsing. I really used that to develop my awareness of the scapula, driving the movement of the arms. And of the energetic flow. And for some reason, doing that and getting to a point where that was really natural and easy for me, made it easier to do it in the form.
Okay.
So just as I think as a thing to make sure you do as part of your practice is to start it with doing some of that so that you get that ability to do the repetitive movement that allows you to really begin to arrive at a point where you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And to, recognize that you are doing it without having to say, yeah, scapula in, scapula out.
Yeah.
Because once then, of course, when you go into the form, it's like this way, that way, this way, and all the places where one scapula is in and one scapula is out. I mean, then
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So it's much more complicated when you get into the form.
Right.
Yes.
So I think part of that too is being very aware of how the energy is moving in every posture, because that certainly is related to what's happening with the scapula.
Okay.
Easy for me to say that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting in the Wu style tends to be subtler and yet not, in some ways, not quite as complicated energetically as the Yang style is, because there are more places where the energies are similar in both arms, or the difference is subtler because the whole form is subtler. But that, of course, can make it more difficult to comprehend what you're doing too. So really, I think in the form, what you have to do is do some thinking about it. Do it a posture at a time and work through it and recognize intellectually to begin with what you want to happen, and then practice it.
Okay.
Until it becomes natural and smooth. And so it's talking about a lot of practice to get all of that. This is not, so you don't want to put the burden on yourself. Well, why can't I do the whole form and get all of it right now? No, if you can get 4 or 5 postures. As a matter of fact, if you can get grasping the sparrow's tail, you have a lot of the form because we repeat it a lot.
True. Yeah.
So, that's the kind of thing to focus on. If you can be clear about that, and then don't worry about everything else, but try to be really clear about what you're doing every time you repeat that sequence.
Okay.
and then add another piece.
Mhm.
And I'm perfectly willing to, be more specific about it with you, but I also think there's real value in your defining what you think it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I mean, rather than me always telling you what I think you should think it is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
So it's, again, it'll take time. And I know you guys don't have a lot of time.
No, but it is helpful to be reminded, because I think sometimes, because it's a flow, I tend to not want to just take one posture and work on it for fear I will disconnect it.
Yeah,
But you're right, but we have to do that, and obviously we have done that. I have done that. To understand that better, and I think in doing God's, you really see that's a flow too, right? But
yeah,
paying attention to individual aspects of it, even individual aspects of number 4, how do we, how we lower our hands, etc. Kind of, makes it in the long, as long as I could keep putting it back together again.
yep. Yeah, it's important to put it back together. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's sometimes my fear, right? It's like, oh, I'll disconnect it, or my brain will go into a different mode. It's like, oh yeah, no, I've done this one before, or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, it's my own struggle. Yeah, with how I think about this.
Well, I think it's just a stage of practice. And I think as you gradually develop the awareness, since we're talking about scapular movement, as you gradually get more and more and more postures clear in your mind and flowing smoothly, it all will begin to connect again.
Yeah.
It's just another step in developing the complexity of the whole thing.
In some interesting way, it is kind of like that old adage of riding a bike, right? Like you get back to it, it's like, oh yeah, like if you've understood it before, it will come back together.
Right. I don't think you're going to forget how to flow. You have to practice a bit to get it back.
Right.
Just as, I think of when I had a joint replacement, it took a while before I could get things back.
Right.
They weren't there instantly.
No.
So, other thoughts or questions?
Question about condensing.
Yep.
As you grow in your ability to condense, did you find that like there were areas that were easier to stay condensed? So like when we were working on 5, I find it's easier to maintain that condensing in the quad, but in the arms, it's very difficult without that muscular contraction. But for whatever reason, the quad seems, I don't know if it's just a larger area or whatever the reason, it's easier to stay condensed. But then I was thinking, like, is being condensed kind of an all or nothing thing? Do you have to be condensed pretty much everywhere at the same time, or you're really not doing it at all?
That's right.
Okay.
Because condensing is closing everything. 30%.
Mhm.
We focus on the qua because we have spent some time in the past on using the qua to direct what's happening in every other joint.
Mhm.
So you can use the qua as the leader of
Mhm.
the band here to condense everything in the body. But yes, it has to be going on everywhere.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
Yeah, it's not only the qua. That's
Well-
what's happening when the for instance, what I was pointing out before, when I could see qua movement would be definitely condensed, but here were the arms doing typical
Yeah.
everyday movement. They were not condensed.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's finding that, and the problem is when we use I don't know if I've never heard Bruce use any other word for this except condense. One of the things to think about is that the condensing, you can think about it in terms of the whole range condensing,
Mhm.
but maybe that condense is focused on the smaller part of the range, or maybe it's focused on the larger part of the range. So there could be other ways to approach this, I think. But what we're thinking about here with 5 and 6 is that that condense is in the smaller end of the range, and we still have the extension, but the bend has to match that extension. So it's not here, it's out here. So that the bend is much smaller from here. If you go from, if you can tell, because I'm not in the other camera, but if you can see, if you go from extended here to bent here, there's no balance.
Right. Right.
Not in terms of condense, there's balance in terms of normal movement. But we have to think in terms of the bend is here. There's a little bit of bend in the arm, and there's a little bit of bend in the extension, because we only bent a little bit in the arms.
Mhm.
So it's yeah. Hard
Well,
to
thank you. That makes it clearer.
Oh, well, good,
Yeah.
good.
I think I was also, I was too flat, not spherical enough in having my arms out to the sides,
Yeah,
too far out to the side. I think that was very clear when you turned to the side. And then I kind of like, then all of the other pieces kind of came back. All of the, then the other, reminders got flooding back. Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
that will help.
good. Well, I hope you have a good week.
Thank you.
It's you.
Hope you're not overwhelmed at the hospital or in your
In the world.
world.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
all right.
don't think too much about what's going on in the world.
I just said to Rick last night, I cannot watch the news anymore. Just shut it off. I just
Yeah.
can't. I'm
Yeah.
overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm with you.
yeah, there comes a point where, I know what I need to do. It's not like I need to keep, being battered by it. So,
Yeah.
all right. Everybody
All right.
stay
Good
well.
seeing
Take
you
care.
guys.
All right,
Thanks.
bye-bye.